Have you ever wondered what restrictive covenants are? Have you ever wondered what the difference is between non-compete and non-solicitation provisions? Have you ever wanted to know how an NDA fits into the picture? If so, you're in the right place. Stay tuned for the answers to these questions and many more.
Hi, I'm William Dolan, and this is Esquire Advice, where we explain complicated and lucrative real estate and business topics. Remember, we are not forming a lawyer-client relationship by way of this channel. Always consult your local attorney before taking any action. With that said, grab a pencil and a piece of paper and get ready to learn.
Welcome to our episode on restrictive covenants. But before we begin, please kindly hit those like and subscribe buttons so we can keep bringing you valuable and profitable content. And tell us your thoughts below. So what the heck are restrictive covenants? I know this sounds like a lot of legal mumbo jumbo. There are three primary types of restrictive covenants: non-competition, non-solicitation, and confidentiality. Many people have heard of non-competes or non-competition agreements. This is an agreement where an employee will agree to not compete with the employer during the time of employment and for some time after his or her time of employment with the employer. There are limitations to what an employer can require. Typically, non-compete provisions are generally only enforceable within a 25 to 50 mile radius and for 2 to 5 years. The non-compete provisions must also be necessary to protect the legitimate business interests of the employer. Some states even require special or additional consideration or other requirements in certain situations for the employee's covenant not to compete. Importantly, many people think there is just one standard formulation to a non-compete provision. However, that could not be farther from the truth. In addition to the geographic and time restrictions, how broad or narrow the non-compete provisions are can vary too. Sometimes non-competes can be included in service agreements, independent contractor agreements, purchase agreements, operating agreements, and other types of agreements. The next type of restrictive covenant that we are going to discuss is a non-solicitation provision, which often appears in a non-compete agreement. If there is not a non-compete agreement, they could be contained in their own non-solicitation agreement. In an employment agreement, they could also be in NDAs, which we'll discuss later, and other types of agreements that I've just referenced for the non-competition provisions. A non-solicitation covenant is where a party agrees not to solicit another party's customers, referral partners, vendors, employees, and/or other parties for a particular set of goods or services. It is a little less harsh than a non-competition provision because the party providing the covenant is not saying that he or she will not work in a particular industry or profession, but that the party will respect the relationships of the other party and not solicit them for certain goods and services. Like non-compete provisions, non-solicitation provisions can be narrow or broad and are not one size fits all. Finally, confidentiality provisions are probably the most common restrictive covenants. When in a standalone agreement, it is usually called a non-disclosure agreement or an NDA for short. However, confidentiality provisions can be found in non-compete agreements, non-solicitation agreements, purchase agreements, employment agreements, independent contractor agreements, operating agreements, and many other types of agreements too. To be sure, a confidentiality provision is where a party agrees not to disclose trade secrets and other proprietary information that it learns when working with or for another party. Sometimes these three kinds of restrictive covenants will include liquidated damages provisions, because it tends to be very difficult to prove the exact extent and amount of damages that a party has suffered as a result of these breaches. A set amount of damages is predetermined and agreed to between the parties. That is what liquidated damages are. It's that set amount of damages. I hope you have enjoyed this episode on restrictive covenants. We have many more videos on real estate, LLC, and business topics, so please check them out. And please kindly don't forget to hit those like and subscribe buttons and leave us your comments below. With that said, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.